Good morning. Nope. Good afternoon. Great start. Okay. No, good afternoon. Welcome to Music and Movement, the relationship between migration and culture, hosted by the Georgetown Americas Institute. I'm Kate Blansett. I'm the program associate at the Institute. I'm really pleased you've all decided to join us for what's sure to be an interesting and thought-provoking conversation on the interconnected relation between music and migration in the United States. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Georgetown Americas Institute, we serve as a platform at Georgetown University for dialogue, research, and impact around key challenges facing Latin America and the hemisphere. Our work is guided by the intent to connect Georgetown with Latin America and Latin America with Georgetown. And that being said, I want to give a quick plug for those of you joining us today. We have our first annual flagship conference on Monday. It's going to take place in Copley Hall. It's called The Americas in the World. It should be very interesting, and I hope that you guys can join us either in person or online. But for today, it's my pleasure to introduce this panel. So, serving as moderator this afternoon will be my supervisor, the one and only Denise Yanovich, director, managing director of the Institute. We're very pleased to have her here to moderate the conversation. And then the woman of the hour, our main speaker, our featured speaker. It's my honor to introduce Ana Maria Saire. You can read her very full and impressive bio on our website, but for now, I'll tell you she is the co host of Alt Latino. She's a curator and producer for Tiny Desk. And as a podcast, radio, and video host, reporter, and producer for NPR, she is focused on elevating the diversity of sounds and stories that define Latinx culture. She interviewed artists from Santana to Rosalia that span generations and the globe, and is a trusted voice on one of the most genre-diverse subsets of music in the world. Additionally, she curates Latin music at the Tiny Desk, and she is NPR's youngest host and has been named a 30 under 30 professional by Forbes and a major mujer by Remezcla. So without further ado, we'll get our panel started, and Denise, you can take it away.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kate. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to make a disclaimer. I wasn't supposed to moderate this panel today. Andrew Seeley, who's an expert on migration, and we hope he's okay. But it's my honor to welcome you. And I was telling, and also I want to thank Kate because this was all her idea. She put this together, and she is bringing in other subjects to the activities we do, which we usually cover politics and economics. So talking about music really brings joy to my heart because I'm from Cali, Colombia. And when you grow up in Colombia, you grow up dancing salsa. And I know we're not going to talk about salsa today, but we could because it is also a story of migration. Yeah, we have to turn it on.
There we go.
Yeah, salsa is also a story of migration.
Everything. So,
but we will talk about the emergence of Latino music in the US. It's important. Latino artists have been featured in the halftime at the most important and most viewed game in the US, the Super Bowl. We have had Shakira, Jennifer Lopez, Bad Bunny, with a lot of controversy is going to be here. But we want to learn about your expertise, your background. I asked you earlier how you got interested in in music, and you said you have a Mexican background. So really interested in your views on this topic, how you see the spread of Latino influence in the US through culture, and then if Andrew joins us eventually, we could talk about migration as well, but welcome.
Thank you. I always hate when they read my bio in front of me. It's really awkward. I'm like, I don't really remember doing that. Yeah, it's good to be here today for sure. Thank you for having me. Kate's awesome. Thank you. You're amazing. And you're rolling with the punches too. I'd be panicking if I were you, and you're doing great. Yeah, so I mean, do you want me to share some remarks first, or do we just want to?
No, let's share some remarks, and we'll make this a very open conversation as well. I'll ask questions as they arise, and please raise your hand. We'll have a mic, and it can become like a conversation, not as structured as usual events. I'll ask questions, you'll ask questions as they come up. So feel free.
Yes. So yes, Bad Bunny. I think the story of Latin music in this country right now, or Latin American music in this country right now, does at least begin or center around Bad Bunny. He's one of the biggest artists in the world currently, not of Spanish language music. I mean, like literally the world. And he released an album earlier this year, maybe some of you have heard it, that some people are calling his most Puerto Rican album yet. It also has been breaking the most records he's ever broken before, which I think therein lies kind of the key to the story. And we were actually talking about this before I got up here. It's in the specificity of going home, of being honest to where you're from, of expressing that in the art, that I think we find connection. Right after his album was released, I flew to San Juan because I was like, I need to see what's going on the island right now. I need to feel the energy. I need to know what's happening. So I flew to San Juan. I get out of the airport, I order an Uber, and the rickiest old Toyota Sienna comes careening in, and out hops this guy. His name's Kevin. I'm talking to my sister a mile a minute, as I usually do on the phone. We're like, chismeando about I don't even remember what. And Kevin turns to me and he goes, would you like some cafecito to go with all that chisme? And that's Kevin. He's funny, he's effusive, he's like larger than life, has the biggest smile in the world. And we get to talking, and he's telling me this story, and he's like, yeah, you know, I love my island, but I'm actually moving to Texas this year. He's like, just with the way that prices are rising and people are moving in order to be able to actually afford to live in my home, I'm gonna have to leave. All this time he's playing Debí Tirar Más Fotos, this new Bad Bunny album, which just so happens to be literally what the album is about. And I go, Kevin, Bad Bunny is singing about your life. And he's like, no, I know. He's like, I realized it because I usually don't rush to play his music. It's not that interesting to me. He's like, I'm actually a photographer, and that's like my real passion. And I love to take photos of my home. Like, that's my thing that I do. I love to take photos of my home. And so I've always respected him as another Puerto Rican artist, but I've never been like all that interested in his music. And he's like, the day the album came out, I was driving someone around and she was like, put on the new Bad Bunny album. You have to put on the new Bad Bunny album. So he's like, okay, fine. So he goes to put on this album and he's like, o sea, me quedé en shock. I was like, Bad Bunny's singing about my life. Literally. Like, lo que le pasó a Hawaii, he's singing about my life. And he's like, but I'm still going to have to go. I'm going to have to go. Like, it made me pause. It made me pause, and it made me question if I should go. I'm still going to have to go, but it made me pause. And right there in that moment, I was like, okay, so imagine Kevin pausing, and his neighbor pausing, and everyone he went to school with pausing, and so many people on the island taking a second and being like, but what if I stayed? And it's not really about if they do or if they don't, but it's about the seconds, moments, hours, days, weeks where they did consider that. And that's where I think the power gets generated of this music. Because if you look at Latin America at large right now, we're seeing like two major trends, I think, in the music. One is that people are returning home. You will see this, and I have sat in the presidents of labels' offices, and they have been like, what do? We don't know how to handle this. Because if you look at literally any country in Latin America right now, more Mexicans are listening to Mexican music, more Colombians are listening to Colombian music, Venezuelans, etc., like across the entire subcontinent. And they're like, we don't know what to do with that. How do we sell a global pop star if everyone wants music from their home? I think that's magical. The other thing that's happening is we're seeing in this country, there's a major opening for music beyond just the pop space, or beyond just the Bad Bunny, or beyond just the Karol G. Like, there's a huge space for more alternative sounds, more unique representative sounds of specific experiences. And I think what these two things are allowing for is this moment where music is really leading a movement. It's leading a cultural shift where people will return home and listen to sounds that feel like their own, and they can come to life through this funnel that is this country. Because yes, you know, the US and all that it is large and expensive, and it holds all these different cultures, but it is still very much, I call it a port. It's a port for the way that what is happening, which is people returning home, and then people going beyond home, as we're starting to see each other. And there's also a thing happening that we're witnessing, that I'm witnessing as someone who covers Latin music and also Latin American culture, and that we're really seeing each other, I think, as a unified Latin American diaspora in a way that I don't know that it's ever happened before. And that's being funneled through the art. And so what this all allows for is that as this art grows, as it expands, Bad Bunny can get on a global stage and say, Ojalá que los míos nunca se muden. We can say, I hope that mine never leave, and that people in Venezuela can hear that and feel identified in that. People in Mexico can hear that. I mean, that is like a refrain for the pain of an entire world right now that is being seen in the music. And so, all to say, as more music moves into this country, I think we're going to continue to see the ways that the Latin American global community gets unified by the Latino community in this country. I work on a thing called Tiny Desk, as was mentioned. And I think a lot of people are really surprised when I explain that 7 of our top 10 countries are Latin American. Our number one city of viewers since the beginning of the platform has been Santiago, Chile. I think Latinos, we love music. Like, we really love music. And I think one of the reasons we really love music is because of the disparateness of what we are, right? Like, we can feel so identified in the music, and also we can feel so unified in the music. And I watch on this platform that I basically do all the Latin American music for. I watch in the comments how people say, my favorite comments are like, I'm Mexican, but today I'm Venezuelan. Or like, o sea, Viva Caracas and yo soy de Chile. Like, whatever it is, you know what I mean? Because they feel so touched, identified, seen within the music. And so you can't understate the importance of what this particular region, and by this region I mean the United States, what the community within this region does for the unification of this global Latin American community. And I think we're going to continue to see this. It's a movement that's growing. It's a cultural shift that's happening within the music. And a question that I got a lot when regional Mexican music first started exploding in this country, they were like, oh my God, does that mean that like random people in like Tennessee, like white American people in Tennessee are listening to banda? And I was like, I'm not sure that that's the case. I was like, I think that there are people in Tennessee listening to banda. There's a huge Mexican population in Tennessee. And the more I reported on this and the more I talked to people, the more I realized, I was like, it is actually the Mexican American community in this country becoming more proud of their own identity that is allowing for this to grow. I went to Nashville actually when early on during this explosion, and I did a piece about all of this, and I was sitting on the bed of this young girl as she was crying to me, talking about the struggle that her dad had immigrating to this country and how she didn't feel a part of it, and how this music and how it was exploding for the first time was making her feel like, oh my God, do I actually belong here? And then she was talking about her 15-year-old cousin who's younger, who she's like, she doesn't question playing her music, like playing our music. Like she feels good about that. She feels seen in that. And at the end of this episode that I did, I kind of posed the question. I was like, what would it be like to grow up in this country and feel that you are 100% where you belong and that your music is 100% like respected and loved and seen and allowed to be seen? And that's the power to me, really. It's like that, it's that small, but it's so massive. It's so massive. And I think that that's the design of like what Bad Bunny was doing with his residency or with that album. And I think it works. Like, I think we're really seeing a shift and it works. And I don't think the goal is to convince X, Y, and Z person in Kansas to see the music and love the music. I think that's a wonderful side effect, and I hope that we can get there. But I think the point is to grow things within our own community to a level where we're all seeing each other and we're all loving and respecting each other. Because that's a lot of people have talked about Bad Bunny and the Super Bowl and the reaction. And his work, his goal, what he does has never been to say, hey, you need to listen to this. We're better. Da, 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 da. It's always been, hey, I'm just going to put this here. I'm just going to put who I am here, who we are here. And I'm going to let you react however you want to react to that. But the point is that we're here. And it works. I went back. I was really curious. A month after I met Kevin, I went back to go find him. I was like, I just have to ask. I was like, it's been a month and this album came out. What's changed? And so I found him in a food truck parking lot cleaning his camera. I was like, Kevin, I just have to ask, has anything changed? And he's like, yeah, I decided to stay. I decided to stay. That's it.
So there's so many things that came to my mind as you were speaking, and I'll put them on the table now and then ask specific questions about each of them. One is how Bad Bunny's album is the most Puerto Ricans of his albums. Oh, we have Andrew here.
Hey,
Thank
Andrew,
you.
what's up?
Don't worry. No worries. But I'll finish. I'll finish my commentary, and then we
She's
can.
like, now I'm
we-
moderating. Go away.
Just one, because we just
You're
did
cut.
a wonderful presentation. No worries at all. So one is although this is the most specific to his culture album, it's become more universal. So why having the music be more specific makes it so appealing? That's one question and one of the themes that emerged. The second theme is the possibility of unity for Latin America. I'm not only from Cali, Colombia, but I worked at the Embassy of Colombia before being here at Georgetown for several years. And and while working at the Institute, one of the themes that emerges particularly now is the incapacity for Latin American countries to work together as a bloc. And gain more leverage and influence working together as a bloc. So will music help us do that? That's the other. And then the third is the capability of, despite Bad Bunny's album being so Puerto Rican, when I heard it, I was talking with my oldest daughter who's 23, and she grew up here in the US. And I said, well, you like it because I've always played salsa at home. And then she said, no, my college friends, it's their favorite album. They
Yeah.
love this song. They love this music. We play it at all parties. So Northeast Americans, white Americans, were dancing to Nueva York.
Yeah.
So it's the appeal, despite the fact that it's so specific. But with those three questions, I'm going to turn it to Andrew, and you can take the chair.
I'm so sorry. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming today.
So just answer those questions.
My goodness.
Get into that.
Sure.
How did you get here? How did you get, I mean, because you're born in California.
Super random.
Super random. How
I-
did you become a lover of Latin music and not only a lover, but one who introduces the rest of the world, and then answer everything else?
Yeah, okay. Yes, I always say that I have a really people ask me this a lot and it's extremely unsatisfying, the answer, but I'll just say it. Yes, I'm from California, from Mexican family. I think it's actually exactly my not fully of Latin American-ness that makes me so drawn to of this work, this music. I always say that the best music, it either represents something that you have that you lost, that you did have, that you lost, or something that you never have, that you have a longing for, that you've never had. And I think because of that, there are times when I listen to music from different parts of Latin America, and it's like for that 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, I feel like I have like a home or an experience or a place that I never fully got to have.
Who came from Mexico? Grandparents or
Grandparents.
Grandparents, okay.
Which is, and now it's
Set up
funny
this.
because, yeah, and I live, it's funny, I live kind of all over. And I would say most of my community is in Mexico City, first and foremost, is where most of my friends are. Most of my friends at this point are not from this country. And they think it's hilarious. They're like, because that's something that I was saying to a friend the other day. I was like, I feel more like an observer than from anywhere. Like I just kind of drop in and I see how if you're from, born and raised and have never left Chile or Colombia or Mexico, for someone in this country to say, I am Mexican or Chilean or Colombian is like, what do you mean you're American? Like that doesn't compute. And I also see this country and have this experience and I understand why. Like there are parts of who you are that stay stay from that original place. So it's an interesting, it's still a journey that I'm on, but I think that's why I'm so drawn to this music. Yeah.
What's going on in the country then?
This country?
Around Latin America. Well, no, that's too broad.
I was like,
As
huh.
we get to the questions here. Good to see you, Christian. The good questions here. Yeah, what's going on with Latin music in the US? It really is. I mean, I have to say, I look at the Billboard charts every week. It's one of my guilty pleasures because I find it fascinating. But Bad Bunny took over the Billboard charts in the same way that Taylor Swift or Beyonce has. I mean, or Morgan Wallen. I mean, it's impressive, right? But it's also like regional Mexican music. I mean, when you've got Eslabón Armado, or you've got in Peso Pluma and Grupo Frontera. I mean, this is not just Latin Americans, people of Latin American descent listening to Latin music here. What's going on?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I said something earlier before you got here. I was like, we already talked about this. No, but I was mentioning that I think that especially when I think the explosion of Bad Bunny's music and reggaeton is distinct from the explosion of banda in this country. I think banda, what I was saying is that I'm not convinced that it's people outside of the Mexican American or Latino community at large that are listening to this music. I think it's actually a unification and empowerment of Mexican Americans. And maybe now, I think it's really hard for people to conceptualize the disparateness of Latin America at large and Latino specifically in this country. I think people really like the idea of let's cater to a Latino audience. To me is like kind of insanity. It's like to Venezuelans in Miami, or like to Mexicans in California, or to Puerto Ricans in New York, because those are very different things. Now, are we seeing more unification around that because of this country, where the music that's happening, the explosion that's happening? Yes, I think so. I think banda maybe for the first time is making it to like Cubans in Miami, which is insane. That is a huge, in and of itself, like a huge conquest, whatever. So there's that. I think in terms of the question of, yeah, there are obviously some like white Americans in this country who are listening, like what you were saying about Bad Bunny. I'm not the best person to ask that for. I had an interview like a couple weeks ago with the BBC when something happened. When Bad Bunny did the Super Bowl. And they were like, what is it about Bad Bunny that like, why are people like who aren't Latino listening to Bad Bunny? And I was like, I actually don't know. Like, if you don't understand, like half of it to me is the letra, o sea, the rhythms are amazing, but half of it is the lyrics. He's good, I guess. Like, I don't know, because he's fun and he's good and we have really good music. Like, I don't really know what to say about that, So it's hard for me in some ways. I don't have a full grasp on that yet, actually. I think what I do have a better grasp on is understanding the power and the unification that is happening of seeing a success of someone from any part of the Spanish speaking world and wanting to be a participant in that and wanting to feel proud of that. We have like this craving for pride right now, I think. And I think that that's really taking us to a lot of places globally. I mean, the reality is that music is always is integral. It's one of the things, right? When I talk about, I don't know, I still feel so Mexican in some ways, even though I was born here and my parents were born here. I did spend every summer going to Mexico, but part of it is my love for music. Simply, it's that I can hear a couple notes of Cielito Lindo, and all of a sudden I know who I am and where I'm from and what I am and why I am. And I actually don't know that I can articulate that. And once the song's over, I don't know that I can articulate that, but I feel it when I'm hearing it. And I think that valuation that has always been put on music and in that part of the world, it has something to do with it too.
How much is that? I think that was the question that was on the table when I was walking in here late, was how much is this also happening?
If you acknowledge it yourself, then no one can say anything.
That's right. Sorry again, everybody, especially you. Totally convinced it was 12:30.
It's okay. I'm late to literally everything. I was early today, which is I think we traded.
Well, good. Well, how much is this unifying Latin America? Because you're right. I mean, it tends to be, I always say, particularly in the research world for, so Georgetown, the best Latin Americanists are Latin Americans who leave Latin America or second and
Yes.
third generation,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Because
yes, yes,
people
yes.
in Chile, Christians, parents' country that, are Chileanists, right? They know Chile. People in Mexico know Mexico.
El mejor país de Chile. El mejor país de Chile, as they always say.
But people leave Latin America, I mean, Latin Americans, and then they begin to look at, or people whose parents and grandparents were from Latin America look at it as a unity. How much
Yes.
is there a moment where music is tying people together?
So yes, I think for one, my huge big thesis on life right now is that Latin America is being unified in the music. That is like I sing that from the freaking rooftop every single day, and I see that in this platform that I work on, right on the Tiny Desk. It's like it's crazy. It's insane to say this, but like it's artists like Bad Bunny and it's platforms like the Tiny Desk where you are literally seeing Latin America be unified.
Do people listen to Tiny Desk in Latin America?
Oh my God.
Tiny, I mean, is your audience more in Latin America or more here
Yes.
or a mixture of both?
Yes. 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 I was saying before you got here, I said that 7 of our top 10 countries are in Latin America. When I got to the Tiny Desk, our top 5 countries were something like the US, the UK, Canada, something like the Netherlands or something kind of, I don't remember. Now our top 5 countries are the US, Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, Chile, Spain. And I could like give myself a lot of like for that, which cool. But really it wasn't that hard. Like
Felix.
it was just, I know. No, but o sea, really it was just about bringing the music for the audience that was already there and already really excited about what it is that we do. Because like I said, we live and we breathe music. And more than that, like it's how I think you can look at the history of Puerto Rico or Argentina or so many parts, Mexico, and you see the music, you see the history of the country, you see political change, social change, like literally like the way that these countries have moved is not only reflected in but guided by the music. That's just how it's constantly in conversation in a real way and in a way that people look at it with respect. And so I think yes. To answer your question, yes, we're being unified in the music for sure. And also, I'm also
getting their teeth drilled into over there, but nobody worry about it.
Person who works in audio, so to me, like any noise is like.
It's crazy. Also, one of the albums that really has hit across Latin America this year is Casu's album. Right? And Casu, I don't know if you've had on yet on a thing.
My goodness, you're really plugged in. I'm impressed.
But that really is, I mean, she made an album of Latin American music with a bit of Mexican, a bit of Andean, a bit of Argentinian, a bit of, and it really kind of, I'm not sure someone would have done that 10 years ago as effect. I mean, it really resonated in some way.
I mean, that is really like the trend right now is to make. I mean, Casu's one example of many. I mean, you can look at Milo J in Argentina. I mean, there's a difference, right? There are some artists like you can look at a Karol G's album from this year, Tropico Queta. It's like literally like it's this. She's attempting to do what is kind of like a pan-Latin thing, but not pan-Latin in the way that Shakira did it or Gloria Estefan did it, where it's like I'm just trying to be like general pop. Or general Latin American sounding pop, which I think the idea was to sell that more to an American audience. It was like, I can cross over by unifying a Latin sound, whatever that means, and selling it to US audience or to a global audience. What a lot of artists now are doing is saying, I want to take sounds from all over Latin America, and I actually want to sell that to a Latin American audience first and foremost, and hope that within that I can and get to a global audience. But to your point that I think was an excellent one about the idea that it's the artists who leave Latin America who can then address or assume this more Latin American identity. I think that's where we come back to the Bad Bunny example, because the Bad Bunny example is not one that it is all Puerto Rican. It's the depth and diversity and spread of what Puerto Rican sound is, and what Bad Bunny does that I think is most effective is Bad Bunny left, and Bad Bunny does not feel fully Puerto Rican. Bad Bunny feels outside of Puerto Rico. Bad Bunny misses Puerto Rico. Bad Bunny wants to be fully Puerto Rican. And it is in that desire that he builds a really successful tension in his music. I was talking before we got up here, I was talking about a friend of mine. His name is PJ Sensuela. And he's a rapper and a doctor and a million things in Puerto Rico. He's amazing. He's amazing. And I think you said to me, I was like, he's like the mayor. People call him the mayor of Puerto Rico. And you were like, but isn't Bad Bunny the mayor of Puerto? And I said something to the effect, I was like, well, that's different. Because it is, because PJ Sensuela, you don't probably know who he is, or maybe you do, but not many people do because he's so Puerto Rican. He's so Puerto Rican that there's not a feeling of discomfort in his music. He's just home. He represents home. He is home. And to anyone who's in Puerto Rico, he fully 100,000,000,000% represents them. And that's beautiful. Bad Bunny is what most of us are, which is feeling outside, feeling like we wish we could be fully one thing, feeling like we wish we could feel fully, part of a community. And I don't think that that's a unique experience. That's like a very human experience. And so it's him being able to capture that longing and to go like full drive, super Puerto Riqueño, porque I want to be Puerto Rican so freaking bad. I'm going to make the most Puerto Rican album in the world. That's what we're all drawn to. And I don't need to be Puerto Rican to feel that way, because I feel Boricua when I listen to Bad Bunny, because he's trying to feel himself Boricua.
He's still got those universal tones and universal themes in some way. Yeah.
Well, a universal theme is a personal theme. There's no such thing as, let me think of the perfect concept that everyone's going to identify with is like, I feel lonely. I feel sad. I feel forgotten. I feel maybe unloved. Like, that's just being a person.
I mean, not to like confuse our genres here, but I keep thinking about K-pop Demon Hunters.
Okay,
I have young kids.
Keeps talking. I get it.
I got young kids, so it's like a big
a
deal.
lot of cultural things, I must say. I'm not very online either. It's a problem.
But the interesting thing about it is it's the person who came up with the idea for it's Canadian of Korean parents, right? And you sort of what you're saying, right? I mean, it is not created by, although a lot of K-pop has come from Korea, but it is that ability of someone who's on the outside, knows Korean culture so deeply, and
Yes.
yet is on the outside of it, coming back and creating something that suddenly becomes universal, right? That suddenly is able to reach beyond the,
Right.
that both it seems genuine at the same time. And the way Bad Bunny seems genuinely Puerto Rican and yet has others relate to. What is it about Puerto Rico? I mean, I think you may have just said it, but maybe it's that because Puerto Rico lives between these two
weird.
worlds.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You just nail on the head. Yes.
Yeah.
For anyone who feels like they don't fully belong in any place, you land in Puerto Rico and all of a sudden you feel home. It is the place for people who feel in between. It is a place where they're deeply aware of like where they sit. They're aware, you go to a lot of parts of Latin America and it's just you're in el mejor país de Chile. Yeah. O sea, there's nothing more to say about it. You're Chilean, you're in Chile, and Chile is Chile, and that's it. You go to Puerto Rico and they're aware of where they sit in relationship to the US, in relationship to the rest of Latin America. A lot of Latin America have things to say about Puerto Rico and what they are and are not within themselves. Like Puerto Rico is one of the few places where I go and people are like, oh, we get it.
Yeah.
We get it. Like, yeah, you're Mexican. Well, no, I mean, but you're Mexican. O sea, whatever. You are whatever you want to be. You are whatever you feel, because everyone has also this experience or this life that has been informed by, well, I was born in the Bronx, or my dad was there, my grandpa was there, whatever. Like everyone is constantly going and coming. You find a level of that in Mexico, I think, especially in the north. You find some of that.
I lived in Tijuana for 6 years.
There you
Tijuana,
go.
I always felt at home in Tijuana. I still do.
Exactly, because
everyone's got a story.
I had a boyfriend who was from Tijuana, and it was so funny the way that like he and my sister and we'd be like, oh, you went there too when you were growing up? Like, I grew up in Southern California, and it's like you kind of have the same experiences in a way, no matter which side of the border you grew up on. And there's this understanding, I think, especially like if you grew up on the US and the south part of the US too, or like in the, you know, on the border side, it's like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, we're actually quite, that's how that works. Like, a border is like a freaking wall. It's like not a thing. We grew up in the same region of the world. Different, of course, to grow up on one side of versus another for a lot of reasons, but it's not, there's so much there that is aligned. And I think that is something we also get to hear in the music. It's like I don't need to advertise to you where I'm from if I'm an artist when I release a record. So it's like a free range, open territory to interpret it however feels right for you and your specific experience. There are not many things, I think, on this earth that aren't like pre-packaged for us to be like, this is for you and this isn't for you. And that's to your point about the Bad Bunny thing. It's like, well, why are like white Americans listening to Bad Bunny? I don't know, because they found something in it. They weren't supposed to, maybe. But they did because whatever, they heard it and they liked it.
What questions do you guys have for Ana Maria? Kirsten, you're first up.
Thank you so much for being here. A huge fan of everything you do. Professor Seeley mentioned earlier, my mom is from Chile, but I grew up in Austin, Texas.
Okay,
and so
God praise de Chile. Wow, I've said it so many times.
the highlight of my year was Adrian Quesada's Tiny Desk concert. Yeah, so thank you for having him.
He's who I was thinking of too when I was talking about border music. So
Oh yeah, he's just such a hometown hero for me. So but anyway, my question, one of my favorite stories in like music history is the way that Afro-Caribbean rhythms got taken up into American jazz, how the clave got incorporated into New Orleans big band music. And my question, do you see any examples of that sort of thing now that Latin American music is exploding in a very different way in the United States? Are there examples of kind of the incorporation of those rhythms and sounds into music that is produced in the United States and not of Latin American origin, but that interacts a lot with that?
So my argument, the first reggaeton song to ever explode in the US is Sorry by Justin Bieber. I mean, there's a dembo. Like, it's not sold as that. You don't know it, but there's a dembo. I think like music is so fluid, it's insane. Like, you can't listen to most any music from Latin America and not hear Africa in it, to your point. I mean, it's like so many stuff. Cumbia, o sea, cumbia, which is all over Latin America. Like, literally that sound, that dance is danced because of enslaved people dancing it in shackles. Like, that is how that was created. And you can look at so many different parts of Latin American music. You can see that. You then can see it in pop music in America 100%. I think now more than ever too. Like, people are more open to the idea. They're like, what's a beat that hits? Well, it happens to be that a lot of those beats are produced in Latin America. So of course it exists. And that, you know, to my example of Justin Bieber, that was before Despacito. I don't even know if Justin Bieber knew that he had a dembo. I'm sure he didn't. I don't know who, I don't actually have never looked into who was the producer on that track, but I don't think it matters. I think the point is that it's here and that it's a language that we all speak that none of us know that we're speaking.
There's a great album by Angelique Kidjo, the singer from Benin.
Really are. Damn.
No, I'm not. But it's Celia Cruz. She sings Celia Cruz. And the fascinating thing about it is here's a singer from West Africa singing Cuban music that was imported from Africa, right? She's taking it back. She's reinterpreting it back. It's a dialogue back and forth, right? It's between both sides of the Atlantic, right? Yeah. You know, and she's sort of recognizing that sort of shared space. There's a song I know with Arya Starr from Nigeria and Raul Alejandro made by a Jamaican producer, which I'm forgetting the name on right now. Yes. That, you know, here you've got like a Nigerian singer, a Puerto Rican singer, and a Jamaican producer out there, and it all makes sense,
Yep.
right? I mean, because it's all their music, right? I mean, it's not like one of them, Arya Starr, was adjusting to like sing Latin styles or do reggae. They were all like singing their own national, something that makes sense in their own context.
Well, and the blending of global sounds is like not even close to being new. I mean, I just did so Rosalia released her album today.
She did this morning.
Have you heard it?
Yes, I have. I'm halfway through the last song. I haven't made it all the way
It's
through.
amazing.
It is truly amazing.
Amazing. It's truly amazing. Like really go listen to it. And I interviewed her last week, 2 weeks ago. I don't remember. And I don't remember. We were in Mexico and we were talking, I mean, it's 13 languages on this album. And I was telling her, I was like, yeah, it's so funny because before doing this interview, I was talking to my editor and she was like, well, it's really interesting how she's gotten less global on this album. I was like, less global? I was like, girl, what are you talking about? Because Motomami, her last album, was like very like Caribbean influenced, a lot of like reggaeton, you have a bachata song in there, whatever. It's more like overtly global in this idea, like at least sonically, more forget the languages part, sonically more overtly global because it's like you go from a bachata track to a reggaeton track to like you have that jazz breakdown in Saoko. It's so freaking cool and whatever. This album, it's classical music. She recorded the whole thing with the London Symphony Orchestra. It's bonkers. But also flamenco is there and it's always there. And flamenco is it's influenced by Arab music, by Persian music. It's Spanish pastoral folk music. Someone once told me they're like, it's Spanish folk music, but infused with grief and pain. I think that's accurate. But like the clap of a flamenco, that's compatible with so many sounds. You hear it be compatible with symphonic music on this album. But more than that, there's some reggaeton always, of course, because reggaeton too, it's a rhythm. It's not
with like orchestral music around it.
100%. And the point is that like she said to me, she's like, my point was to fit the entire world into this album. I can't, but this was the closest I could come. And the point is that music is it's like fitting puzzle pieces together. Like just because we as stupid people try to label it and be like, this is this or this is that. How we feel about a thing, it all comes from the heartbeat, right? Like that's where we learn rhythm, and everything else after that is like us building on that or constructing around it or warping it a little bit. And so it's like, well, of course it's compatible because we all come from the same thing. Our understanding of rhythm comes from, but that's like not an idea that I think a lot of people like, because to believe that we all come from the same thing and we all are the same thing is like not helpful for a lot of people who want to maintain certain types of power built on certain types of things. But that is just the truth. That is just the truth. And so it's like with music, you're just being given the truth all the time.
Great. Back there. Yeah.
Thank you. So I had a comment and a question. First, the comment. When you said that, identifying with music is about getting to something that you don't have, just resonated so much with me. I'm Cuban American. My parents are from Cuba. I was born in Miami. And one of my favorite songs to listen to almost on a daily basis is Mi Tierra by Gloria Estefan. I've only been to Cuba once. It is technically not Mi Tierra at all, but for whatever reason, that song really resonates. And I think it's to that point that you made. It's about something that I never had that I miss. My question actually has to do a little bit with the phenomena, the explosion of Big Bunny. And if you could speak a little bit to the idea that some of it is just because of controversy. Like when you think about, we've had Celia Cruz, for instance, who's been, phenomenal, and everyone, they may not listen to her music, but they know who she is, right? And you have these other artists that have come before. I almost feel like if Big Bunny had not been featured in the Super Bowl, for instance, in a particular time in history when there is so much hatred and division in this country, it might not have, I don't know, like, would it be as much of an explosion as we're seeing? So if you could talk to that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
One other up here too. Who was that? Back here. Yeah.
It's okay, Bad Bunny. We got it. We got it. Don't worry. One, to your comments, something I've learned also doing this work that's really cool and has helped me personally is like I think almost all of us feel not enough and feel a little weird about the things that we connect with and like, oh, is this really mine? And that's like kind of the part of the whole thing is like not enoughness. And when you talk to enough people and you go enough places like this in this work that I've done, it's like, oh, everyone feels that way. Whoa. So cool and amazing and wonderful. To your question, yes. Would he have been as big? Yes. Simply. I had a particular host who I will not name at NPR reach out to me not that long ago. I shouldn't even be saying this. Basically saying like I understand now that you know I should be interviewing Bad Bunny. Like this makes sense. And I was like, well, great that you want to interview Bad Bunny. But Bad Bunny being picked to do the Super Bowl is like one of the least interesting, impactful things I think Bad Bunny has ever done. Bad Bunny quite literally in November helped shift Puerto Rico from being a 2-party to a 3-party electoral system. Literally. I mean, like there was a candidate that had 1% of the popular interest amongst people was polling at 1%. It was kind of a combined candidate of the Independence Party and the Social Issues Party. Bad Bunny and other artists campaigned so forcefully for this person, and there was so much a wave of such interest that he almost won. Bad Bunny, Puerto Rico is a political system that is basically hinges on two things: statehood or status quo. It's like the whole system is just about status in relationship to the US. And here comes this third party that's like, what if we actually talk about the electrical grid and water and all of these things that are affecting us personally. And it was through artists like Bad Bunny who were so forceful in that he got 30-some% of the vote. This candidate, Juan Dalmau. And he also, is this, like I said, has been this great unifier in Latin America and has been global for years as an artist for years. I think the interesting thing in this story and in your question, and it's nothing wrong that this is your perception, but I think that is a perception in this country is that, oh, well, now we're paying attention to this guy because he's playing the Super Bowl. It's kind of like that thing where it's like you have to be better than the best of the best of the best of the best in this country if you are Latino or Black or any non-white identity, because that's the only way that people will pay attention to you. And I'm like, Bad Bunny would have changed the world in the course of history whether he played the Super Bowl or not. The fact that people are paying attention now because he's a talking point of conservative pundits, I don't think that that's his point.
I completely agree with you, but it is a different reaction than J-Lo and Shakira got a few years ago.
Totally.
And they were playing in Miami, which probably had a lot to do with it, but it was also a different moment in time, right? I think you're right. Bad Bunny would be equally famous. He's
I don't know. It's hard to predict, but there's two distinct things about Bad Bunny. One is he actually sings exclusively in Spanish, which is apparently really, I was shocked actually. The day that the announcement came out, I was like, oh yeah, Bad Bunny's playing the Super Bowl. I'm not surprised. I mean, he's like had the biggest year of freaking ever. I was there at the residency. I went to 5 shows of that residency, and it's like maybe one of the most insane things I've ever experienced in my life. I mean, to be in that space, you can't even for a second deny that what he is doing is like, you can like his music or not, but it's like to feel power like that, it's like, so I wasn't surprised. And then I saw the comments and I was like, whoa, oh my God, like people are really racist. But the beyond that, it was kind of like this thing of I think it's the Spanish thing, which by the way, like the US is very Spanish speaking. And I think it's this weird confrontation with Puerto Rico. People like learning for the first time that Puerto Rico is part of the United States is a little bit nutso to me. And and feeling uncomfortable about that. Like if I'm whoever, I'm just imagining this and I have a vision of what the United States is, to believe that this Spanish speaking non-American place is part of this country, I think that makes me really uncomfortable. I think that makes me like pause and question some things. And when people pause and question things, that's when they like really react to stuff, right? It's like, okay, well, and the point of this argument is actually, I think I've seen so much discourse. It's like, oh, but Puerto Rico is part of the U.S. And it's like, yeah, but also I don't know that that's really actually the thing that matters here. I think the point is that he's an extremely influential cultural figure with a massive audience in this country, in his language. So of course he should play, right? Like I don't really know what the question is, but that's my point in what I said earlier, where Bad Bunny's motive and Bad Bunny's mandate is not to convince you or you that Spanish is valuable or that Puerto Rico is valuable or that it's part of the United States or all of these things. The point is Bad Bunny just says, hey, by the way, I'm here. And he speaks to his people. You go to the residency and he's like, hey, by the way, never forget to play your drum. Never forget that you're valuable. Never forget that Puerto Rico is amazing. It's talented. It's beautiful. It's intelligent. We're all like, that's his mandate. And that his mandate then is to take that to the world. And however anyone else feels about it is really, I don't think something he's all that concerned about.
There's a question back here, but can I see one thing on this before? I'm actually, one of the things that I think is it's not new, but it is, I think, new in how much we're seeing is like Kali Uchis, who's a mainstream American R&B singer, from the DMV, by the way, right, from this local area. Drops Spanish into her songs all the time. In fact, one of her big hits is entirely in Spanish, Telepatía. She kind of is like back and forth in it. Pitbull does this all the time. I mean, this is J-Lo's done it on and off. This is sort of this ability to sort of move back and forth. It's always existed. You can go back and find artists that did this, but it is becoming pretty common, actually.
I think
comfort of it back and forth.
Stylistically, it exists differently than it used to. Pitbull. It was actually funny. I was in the car the other day with 3 of my friends in Mexico, 2 of them Mexican, 1 Chilean.
I see a theme of Mexico and Chile here. This is
the Chilean friends. I don't know why. Actually, it's kind of random. But like Chilean friends in Mexico. Anyways, El mejor país de Chile. So all to say, we're in the car and we're like, remember that era when like every song had like a rapping part and then like the hip hop or like the singing whatever chorus, and it was like you had to have Pitbull on it. It was like Pitbull, Neo, or I forget, we said one other person. But that was how Pitbull and artists like that were in. There was like a very specific formula for how these artists could be integrated and what they could do and how. And it was like a certain amount of Spanish and it was a certain style and whatever, certain beat. Now it's like the freaking Wild West. It's like I could be Kali Uchis and I can release an album that's like kind of in Spanish, but kind of in English. And some of the songs are in Spanish and some of the songs are in English and some are a mix. And then I'm going to do a whole Spanish album. Then I'm going to do a whole English album, or I'm Omar Apollo and I'm doing like mostly all English, but then I do like a song in Spanish, or like I do a song like he did on his last album where he says, I'm so heartbroken. And then I sing one verse in Spanish being like, I'm so heartbroken. I have to sing this part in Spanish because I don't want you to understand how heartbroken I am. And that's more true. Right? Like that's more actually how, he's Mexican American. His parents immigrated to Indiana. That's where he grew up. And that's more true to like literally how he would express himself, right? Like, oh, I love you. And I say that in English, but I actually don't want to tell you how much I love you. I'll only say that in Spanish. I bet he literally did that, And so it's like, that's the thing I think that is actually really connecting people right now, is this like fluidity to the style of how we do things in Spanish and English. And that's a much more like authentic expression of how we all actually exist in this country in a way that people didn't realize that they could do before or wasn't as widely accepted.
Okay, back there. Caballero ahí en la esquina.
Hello, how are you? Thank you for opening this space for all the migration and music and culture. I didn't want to be here, but my wife pushed me because she knows that I wanted to say something. We are part of the Mexican diaspora that is here. I'm the president of the alumni organization, the largest one here, which is the Red UNAM DC. As you know, UNAM is the largest school in Mexico.
My wife studied there, so yes.
She can be a member. But we are gathering together with all the alumni universities here, La Ibero, el ITAM, somos cerca de, no sé, yo calculo que son como 4,000 gentes que no, sorry, we are like
No, todo bien.
4,000.
Si está bien
Some
español, no
Poblats,
pasa
sorry,
nada.
He's talking about.
So then we're gathering together and we are a lot. So then we're doing these events and we care about Mexican culture, but now we realize that we are more. So then I went to register Latinamente Corporation, which is a nonprofit that helps Latino communities to just be here and be pleasant and help them in so many ways. And last week we threw the Katrina parade at the mall. And I'm here to tell you the challenges that we're facing. So in first place, I'm so involved in music. My son is going to have on December 2 a concert with Sarah Brightman because I'm trying to push and push and push and push. And then he got this. I'm part of the founders of the choir of the Mexican Cultural Institute. But we're facing so many challenges. For instance, in the Mexican Culture Institute, the choir has to charge for every member $100 because we don't have support. And they leave us to rehearse in the Mexican Cultural Institute. The name of the choir is Carlos Chavez. It's a Latin American choir. Then for this parade, for the Katrina's parade, I was in charge of the artistic expressions, and we gathered some singers and dancers. And I have a list of maybe 10 or 15, and all of them cancel me because they're afraid of ICE, and they're afraid to express themselves. Even some of them, they have visa work in this country, and they are afraid of. So then they cancel me. So at the end, I start to I asked to my American friends, my United States friends, because I don't want to say, sometimes they ask me, where are you from? I say, I'm the United States. I'm from the United States of Mexico. Or I'm UXican, because to me, being an American is like everyone being in this country. So, or in this continent, no? I'm an American. I'm not the Americas. We are not the Americas. We are not the other ones. So we are American all. So I used to live in Chile, by the way, and I know Chileans very well.
It's de Chile.
I don't know. I don't know. It's
So
nobody knows.
along with my lateness.
Nobody knows about Chile. But the challenge that we're facing at the event, let me tell you another example.
And then we'll come back to Ana Maria.
Someone, I take everything, my speakers, my microphones, also a power electric device. I don't know how you call them. This a generator. So then, in the middle of the event, someone just turned off the generator. So I went there, and some guys, they told me, oh, that was this guy. So he was walking away. So then I didn't say anything. I just tried to turn on the generator. And then he come back. And then I say, well, I was just pissed about the fact that he turned off the generator. And I say, well, why did you do that? And he was, back to your country. And I say, well, this is my country. Maybe you are the migrant, because Mexico, here was Mexico before. So then, who is the migrant? What are the challenges that artists were facing in the US? I can tell you stories and stories and stories, but you got my point.
That's great. Thank you. I mean, so this is, I mean, on one hand, you're telling us a story about how music is showing the change in this country. The people, you know, you have Caliuchis beginning to be free to speak, or Omar Apollo being free to speak as they would at home and write as songs. But there's also this other reality, right? That's hitting right now of people, and you raised this earlier too. You know, there's a debate about identity in this country going on, and some people don't think that's the identity of the country.
To go back to the first thing you asked me, I was talking to my therapist about this. She's awesome. She's from Brazil. Her name is Giselle. And truly. And I was talking to her about this and I was like, why is it that feel so like I don't belong in this country even though I was born here? And like all of this does feel personal to me and like part of my life. And she was like, there were these studies that they did where they gave little kids, they asked little kids to draw a home. And they brought in little kids that were immigrants themselves or their parents or grandparents or even great grandparents, like a lot of generations. And it was basically this thing where the kids who them or their families had not felt like accepted in this country, they drew another home. They drew Nicaragua or Honduras or Mexico or like places that they had never visited before. But that was what came out. I think that there's so much to be said about what's happening in this country right now. And I think it feels dire and severe because in a lot of ways it is. I don't think it's all that new. I think we're on this cycle of more acceptance and less. And I think since the beginning, since the inception of this country, I mean, this country was founded in a lot of ways on marginalizing certain groups of people, on violence against certain groups of people. So I don't think that what we're living right now is all that new. And I think you can see that reflected in generations of people who have lived here and how they've felt about it. I think the point is that with the music, we're allowed to elect the reality and the acceptance that we want to have. That is not too far from the truth. I think there's like this discourse that people are really pushing right now that is that it's this horrible time to be I'll speak to Latino, to be Latino in this country, that it's terrifying and it's dangerous. And in many ways it is, and also like, but so many of us are still here and we're still living here and we're still doing our lives. And I think the music allows us to actually see each other in that part of the struggle, the life part of the struggle, and to believe in that. Like I said, that with the Bad Bunny thing, with a lot of this music, the goal is not to be like ICE and then the fear and whatever. It's to be like, I don't, that's not my story. Like that's all of us, or sea, any Latinos in this country. Like at the end of the day, like our lives are not that. Like our lives are what we are and what we love and our joy and what we care about. Like that's my narrative. What's happening in this country and the way that someone who doesn't understand my life and isn't part of my life is talking about my life, my community, my family, it sucks because it is real. Like there's real physical realities of it. And also like, that's not my story. And so I think, I've been asked about this a lot. And the thing that I always have to say, I'm like, well, I'm a journalist, so I can't comment on X, Y, and Z. It is controversial to be Latino in this country right now. And the line keeps getting moved back. Like what I do is now becoming more controversial just by nature of the fact that I talk about Latin identity and I talk about Latin music and I promote it. The reality of what I do hasn't changed.
But it's becoming more controversial for some people and much more accepted by many others.
Right.
Right? Because in some ways, what you're doing is becoming really mainstream. I actually, even though I got the time wrong, I did say as I was leaving my last meeting, I said, oh, I'm going to a group of people, all of whom were not Latinos. I'm going, I'm actually going to be introducing the person who runs a Latino. And they all responded in unison, oh, I love that. Right? I mean, in some ways, it is more mainstream than it's ever been, and yet you see this pushback happening at the same time, which is maybe the history of the United States, right?
Literally how it goes, right? I said this to a friend the other day. She was like, I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh my God, no, oh my God, this is really funny. I said this to my friend who's Canadian, he's a singer in Canada, and he did this thing where he changed the lyrics of the Canadian national anthem to like say something like on instead of in or something. It was something basically to like pay more respect to the indigenous communities that had like, Canada comes from. And oh my God, the level of vitriol and hate that he got for doing that. And I was like, what, you have this purported mission in your life to like to be this big artist, you can have a voice and do positive things. I was like, you literally could not do that. Like, the sign that you're doing that is that people are pissed. People are going to react however they're going to react. The bigger a movement gets, the more success you get in shifting something forward, you're going to see more pushback. And I think that is a lot of what's happening right now. Like, the Latino community in this country is louder and prouder and larger than it has ever been historically. And so, of course, there's going to be some kind of response to that. But this is a country of what, over 300 million people? And like, the expectation that some stories about hate and vitriol and all the horrible things that are happening, that's representative of 300 something million people. And what's actually, that is not a reality. That is a piece of a reality. And I think that is my critique of my work, of journalism, of media in this country, that it's like, oh, we're going to tell this part of the story. There is a really diverse story to be told here. And one of those stories is like all of the whatever millions and millions of Latin American descendant people in this country who are still like living and working and being joyful every day. Like, that's not a very interesting story for a lot of people, but that's true.
Pretty sure we know who wins this in the end. I mean, this is sort of the history of the U.S., right? I mean, there's sort of the pushback on immigrant groups and their children and grandchildren and the change in the country. But ultimately, those people don't win the argument. It can be nasty for a while, but they don't win the argument. The country evolves over time. Slower, faster, but it evolves. Yeah. And then there's a new pushover against someone else. But yeah.
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 This country's a very unique place.
Yeah.
A very unique place.
I'm on in a group with a guy who's actually a Vietnamese refugee and an extraordinary scholar. And he, every time we're talking about, he ends up, he's got this phrase, which I've come to love, which he blurted out one day. We've all like used it, which is that America is an integration machine. I mean, there is a capacity in this country to and we resist it constantly, right? It's not that it's an easy process or it's a linear process or happens naturally or peacefully, but in the end, people actually become part of this country, and this country adapts to and changes to reflect the people that are part of it, right? Which I think is, I think a big part of the takeaway of what you're talking about is also this amazing ability. I mean, you started something that was a niche. And it was a niche both for Latin Americans and a niche for people in the US. And it now is sort of a mass, you've probably got a lot of listeners who are not Latino in the US. And you've gotten a lot of Latin Americans who might not have seen themselves as Latin American at another point. And they're actually, you've like hit the moment, right? You're hit the moment where suddenly this is mainstream on this side of the border, but it's also kind of getting mainstream elsewhere in the hemisphere as well.
Well, successful cultural work is just successful reflection. That's all it is. Like, that's accurate reflection. I mean, the desire, the need for that expression was always there, has always been there. I don't think that the presence of the products that I work on has changed that in the slightest. It's just people really want to be seen. Music does that.
Out there.
Music does that. Music does that. It will, if it always has, and it will continue to, no matter like what happens amongst us earthlings, like music exists above that,
Give it up for Ana Maria. Yes. I realize you were able to stay for the food here for a few minutes. Okay, so you have a chance to be able to chat with her. Thank you to Kate for organizing this, by the way. Yes. And let's all get some food and some informal conversation to keep the conversation going.